Well, I'm Jerry Friedman. I'm the youngest son of Aaron and Sarah Friedman, my father Aaron and mother, who made these wonderful houses. My father was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1915. He never finished high school. When he was 16, it was the middle of the Depression. He had to go to work full time. He worked before that even as a boy. He worked with his father, who had a little print shop. Late 1940s, the family, they were here in Mobile, and they had a little shed, a little lean-to shed next to the garage in back of the house. And Dad got some very basic woodworking tools at that time, and he started making some little projects. He made a little miniature grandfather clock that was about this big, and it had a pocket watch for the clock movement, so you could wind up the pocket watch and it would actually keep time. And another project that he made at that time was a card table top that he had all this inlaid wood as the tabletop, and in each corner he inlaid heart, diamond, club, and spade, the four suits of the cards. Over the years, he learned a lot about construction and architecture through the real estate development that he and my uncle did. One time it really surprised me. He said if he had been able to go to college when he was young, he really would have wanted to study architecture. So I think he just had that interest all of his life, and he got to live it in this way once he was retired. One time, he and my mom were in Atlanta visiting my oldest brother Murray and his wife, and at that time they had one daughter, Rachel, who was about 7 years old, I think, at the time. And Dad, was just talking and mentioned he was bored and looking for something to do, and so my sister-in-law, Lynn, suggested, well, why don't you make a dollhouse for Rachel? And she'll enjoy playing with that, and make it look like our house here in Atlanta. And I like to say Dad got a little bit carried away. What he ended up doing was making a scale model replica. The scale of these miniatures is 1 inch equals 1 foot, and he got their blueprints from when they redid the house. He went up there, he took measurements, he took he said over 100 photographs, and he came back and he faithfully reproduced that house. And kind of the sad part is, once he got it done and Rachel came to visit, and it was like, oh no, look but don't touch. Mom was always very, very involved, not so much with the architectural design, and certainly not with like all the construction processes, but she did, if he needed an extra pair of hands to hold something while he was doing something, he'd get her out. He built them in the garage where they lived. She'd come out to the garage and help him with that. But she was very helpful in like the interior finishes, paint colors, wallpapers. Her hobby, among others, was needle pointing and petty pointing. And so as you look through the houses, you'll see all of these handmade needle points and petty point rugs. She made all of those. She helped with the drapes, and another family friend, Pearl Brook, helped with a lot of these little details. Mom made the little bath towels that you see in the bathrooms. Some of them have monograms that she stitched on there. You'll see little rolls of toilet paper, and she would cut actual toilet paper and roll it up and make these little teeny rolls of toilet paper. So she was definitely very instrumental in making all of this happen and supporting him along the way and encouraging him and finding places to travel and things to do. They belonged to the National Association of Miniature Enthusiasts, NAME. It's a national organization, and they would go all over the country to conventions that NAME had, smaller gatherings that they called house parties, and she would make little projects and stuff to go in the house. The stuff that really makes these houses look like home. My brothers, not really, because they were all living in other cities at the time. I moved back and lived in Mobile from about 1982 until 1990. So I was around more, I would say more as a consultant. I actually at one time was a professional woodworker. I made actual furniture, nothing miniature like this. But I made actual furniture and cabinets and restored antiques. So I know, and I worked in construction a little bit. So I know design, I know construction, and I could help him, especially with some of the technical issues of helping him figure out some of the proportions. And I remember on Anna's house, it's got a very complex roof with a lot of angles there, and helping him figure out how to make some of those cuts. That was helpful for him. He said it took him about a year for each house from the time, like once he decided on a style of design, by the time he researched that style, found either a house to copy or a pattern out of a book, that to copy, until he actually completed. He said took a year. Some of them a little less. One of them, as I've been doing the research that I've been doing on these, one of them took 14 months. I don't off the top of my head recall which one that was. So 9 to 14 months. No, not every one. So Rachel's house I talked about, obviously a very faithful reproduction of that house in Atlanta. The Victorian, based on the Tissington home at Government and Georgia Street. Here's what he learned from Rachel's house. Because he copied an actual house and wanted to show all the rooms in that house, that presented some very unique design challenges. How do you show the exterior of the house and also the interior of the house, where some rooms are on one side of the house and some are on the other? And so for that house, he made it so that both sides of the house would open up and you could see in from both sides. After he built that, he realized that really wasn't very practical for display, because people would have to open and close the doors. It subjected them to wear and tear and breakage and all of that. And ultimately, what he ended up doing was just taking the sides off of one side of the house so that you could see in from that side, and you'll see most of the rooms in Rachel's house from that side. So from that he learned, well, you really can't do that with a dollhouse. You have to be able to see the architecture on the front, or one side or three sides really, but then go around the back and be able to reach inside and play with the dolls and that sort of thing. So a miniature house can really only be one house deep. All right, that presented challenges in and of itself of how to create an exterior that looks like something, but also show all of the rooms that he wanted to show, a kitchen and a dining room and a living room or great room and bedrooms and bathrooms. And so he had to work out the elevation of the outside that also allowed him to have all the rooms he wanted to see. Yeah, so in between, he had to have something to do. In between each house, he'd take about a year or so to, rest or not be involved in a project like that. If you look through the houses, you'll see, like a lot of the floors have very intricate parquet inlay parquets that he would cut, tiny pieces of veneer and glue them in one at a time. So he really liked that sort of stuff. He created a number of jewelry boxes over the years that he would give away to family members and friends with intricate inlay. He got the old card table out of the closet that had just been sitting in the closet for all those years, cleaned it up. It needed some repair and refinished, and he refinished it really nice, and then he took it to a cabinet shop and had them put legs on it so that it was a real table, and gave that, I think, to my brother Murray, and then had to have something to do. And he started making these card table tops. Each one is unique and different with all this intricate inlay. I now have one of those. I think my other brothers each have one. There may have been some more that he did. Another series of projects, Mom and Dad were two of the original founders of the Mobile Miniature Club, and I have to give them a shout out. The club still exists to this day, and they come in. They have been wonderful, wonderful assets to the museum here. They come in from time to time to clean the houses and make repairs that are needed, and they have really been an invaluable resource to helping the museum maintain this collection. Gosh, I just hope that they enjoy and marvel at these works of wonder. They truly are, it boggles the imagination to see the amount of detail that went into the planning and the design and the execution and the finishing of each one of these houses. I mean, as you're looking through it, what boggles my mind is just all the little knickknacks and the stuff that any of us would have in our house. Books, magazines, a newspaper on the table, cans of canned soup or boxes of cereal in the cupboard, dirty dishes in the dishwasher. The stuff that makes it real and that looks like little people could actually live here. And it truly is, they are works of wonder and imagination and love. I mean, it was a really, this is my father's way of expressing his love for his family, for his grandchildren, the granddaughters, but really for all of them. And they really were his joy in his later years. And he wasn't a real, give you a big hug kind of a person. So this was his way of communicating his love.